My name is Al Marshall. I'm the current chapter president in the city of Oakland.
And what kind of work do you do, Al?
I'm a construction inspector for the last 16 years now.
And you've been active in Local 1021 and 790 for many years?
Yes, approximately 18 years.
And what's going on now? I mean, you're here at a recount of an election. What's happening here in the city of Oakland for the SEIU 1021 members?
Well, there's a lot of distrust between the local and it's dividing our membership greatly.
And what is the distrust about?
Representational issues, staffing issues, um, having arbitrations, holding the city accountable with their arbitrations in a timely manner. People are out on without any pay right now for being terminated, and their arbitration cases should have been heard by now, and they should be back in work, but they're at home with no pay in a no pay status.
So the city is getting away with terminating people before an arbitration, and people don't have any income.
Correct.
How is that affecting people and the membership?
It's affecting our members because they feel like they're not being represented and they've been paying their dues on time because they get deducted straight out of their payrolls every 2 weeks. So members are frustrated and they want to be made whole and they want to get back to work in those cases where they were wrongfully terminated.
And what has happened? Is this new or has this been going on for some time?
We have cases that should have been heard by an arbitrator now 3 to 6 years ago.
So the member and his family are really in bad shape.
Of course, and with the recession that took place, people are hurting tremendously. I know I have colleagues who have lost their homes. They went through divorces through these hard times, and their families are divided now.
So it's a life and death situation for some people.
It's a life and death situation for all of us.
And what has been the response of the union officials here to this, the top union officials?
Mostly promises, but comes short of the promises. They're not fulfilling them.
And it sounds like there's a pattern of the city kind of retaliating and knowing that they can get away with it and stall for people getting justice?
Sure, that's what they rely on. They rely on the procedures that take place, which is the first, second, third step of the grievance process, and then there's the arbitration, which could take anywhere from 6 months to 2 to 3 years before you even get to an arbitrator, before he even hears the case.
And there's a recount here at your election for city workers. Why do you have to have a recount?
Well, it was odd the way that the numbers turned out on the May 25th night when the ballots was first counted. In the officers' positions, there was a total number of either 240 that voted or 229, when we know for a fact, according to the documents, that there was a total of 469 members who actually voted on that day in question.
So what happened?
That's why we're here tonight with this recount, to observe the data and try and just get to that answer, hopefully before tonight is over with.
Do you think this has been a fair election, or do you think the rules have been manipulated in this election for political purposes?
Yeah, I do believe that it's been manipulated. From day one, there were, as the chapter president, I was not kept in the loop on how we were coming along, leading up to the elections, when other people such as Felipe Cuevas, who is our city's industry chair, there's some emails where he was connected and being informed of how the process was moving along. So, yes.
And you're the chapter president.
I am.
And they didn't inform you what was going on?
They did not inform me until after the information was out to the membership, was I brought up to speed of when the elections were going to occur.
Is that proper in the way to conduct an election?
As the chapter president, I feel totally disrespected.
You had a 3-year term previously. Why the change in the term?
Good question. Mysteriously, someone came up with a bylaw template, and it alleges in the bylaw template that if your chapter doesn't have its own bylaws, you shall hold elections every 2 years. However, the bylaw template is blank. There's no, in the line items where there should be a date and time of when the elections are to occur, all of that is blank. So we're operating on the premises of a blank bylaw template to force these elections.
And there are other chapters in SEIU 1021 that haven't had elections for years.
Yes, that's the way I understand it. There are several chapters throughout SEIU who have not had elections for years, nor are they following the so-called bylaw template.
You think your chapter has been basically retaliated against because you had some members who challenged the executive board and did not support the present president, Roxanne Sanchez of 1021?
I believe that has a great deal to do with it. I also believe that it has a great deal to do with some of our staff being dissatisfied with me challenging them on the fact that they weren't doing their duties as a business rep and properly representing the members in the city of Oakland. And I've always held them accountable as well as holding myself, and they would align themselves up with some of our members to persuade them that I'm out to get them when all I'm holding them for is being accountable for doing what we asked for, and that's to be duly represented.
And the mergers that took place, 790, 1021, now you've got a local 54,000 members. They said when they were supporting the merger and pushing the merger that it would make the union stronger. What has been your experience, and what do you think the result of these mergers has been?
I think their definition of stronger was capital. They were looking at the money. I don't believe they thought twice about how they were going to represent the members. In fact, in the city of Oakland, we only have one business rep, when prior to the merger, we had 3 business rep and 1 full-time president, just to cover the city of Oakland alone.
So you're saying that basically your representation of staff who are supporting the rank and file of the city has gone down tremendously.
It's gone down tremendously, and we were actually better off when we were 790 before this merger took place.
So who was it benefited?
I would say the local officers, staff. You know, they're making a great deal of money. And I don't mean this to say all staff or all business reps are bad. There are some who are excellent. In fact, our current business rep, who's been with us for the past 6 months, he's been excellent for us, but the backlog of work is just impossible for him or myself to cover the whole city of Oakland by ourselves.
Now, the transfer of staff takes place. What process is there for the membership to decide new staff coming in, or even the transfer of staff? Because it does take years to find out how the city operates, all the different issues, and how you're going to what your concerns are.
That's correct. Time and time again, whenever a new business rep has been on a slate to come into the city of Oakland, time and time again, we've always requested to interview those reps ourselves to get a feeling for if they're a right fit. We always use the slogan is, they can't come in here crawling, because there's so much going on in the city of Oakland. They have to be a very advanced and sharp, articulate business rep to deal with what's going on here in the city of Oakland.
And what happens? Have you had any control, your chapter, over who's brought in and who's transferred out?
Very minimal, to say the least.
Isn't that beneficial to management? I mean, because they have your business agent go in and out, and and yet their managers are there all the time. They know what's going on, and they know the issues, and they have a history.
That's correct, and it's interesting that you even say that, because we had a business rep who was removed from the city of Oakland in January 2015, and leading up to January 2015, I know for a fact on at least 3 different occasions there were city management level people making requests to this local to remove him from being our business rep.
Why would they do that?
Because he was a sore in there, you know what.
So he was doing his job.
He was doing a fine, excellent job. In fact, we have a serious issue regarding our TPTs and how the city has some TPTs that are truly seasonal, but the majority of the work isn't seasonal. And this particular rep, he was really getting down to the bottom of that, and subsequently he was removed before we could really close that door and take care of those TPTs who are wrongfully being treated as temporaries when the work that they're doing is full-time year-round work.
It sounds like that's something that the union, SEIU 1021, should center on, should publicize, should build a movement around.
Yes, correctly, and we thought we were moving in that direction, but once that business rep was removed, there was less attention put on the TPTs than what they truly deserve.
My name is Felipe Cuevas. I work here at the city of Oakland.
What kind of work do you do, Felipe?
I'm actually a heavy equipment mechanic.
How long have you been with the city?
I've been with the city since '98.
So what's going on here tonight?
So we had a chapter election. We're all employees at the city of Oakland, so we have our own chapter in SEIU. And we had an election, and the count was last Wednesday, and apparently the results, there were some questions around the results, so I believe folks asked for a recount, and then tonight is the recount. So I believe we're like halfway through the process. I'm not sure exactly what happened, other than the total vote count was higher than it was last week. That's all I know.
And there's some concern about the process of the election, that everyone wasn't informed that there was an election, that some people knew about the election beforehand, that the term was changed. It was usually 3 years to 2 years. Do you have any concerns about how the election process took place?
Well, I think everyone has their own opinion on the terms. I think maybe it depends on what document you look at. I was clear on the terms, but the other part of the question you asked.
Do you have any concerns about the process of the election, of people being informed?
I just answered that question. I believe the other question you asked was notice. So I believe that notice, it's done the same way every time. I believe, I know that there was notice around in Public Works where I work. I didn't get downtown, so.
Did they send out an email to all city employees about the election? From the city?
The city? No.
I mean, the union can use the city email systems to inform all city workers that there's going to be an election.
I'm not sure if they did that or not. I have not checked my city email in over a month and a half because I don't work in an office. So everyone's assigned an email address, but most folks that work in the field, they don't really have access to it because they don't have a computer. So it's kind of like, it's cumbersome.
Now, how many members do you have in Oakland?
City of Oakland, I'm sure there's over 2,000 if you count the TPTs along with the PPTs and the full-time.
And what was the participation in the election?
It was about average. Actually, I believe it was a little higher than the average.
How many?
How many what?
How many people voted?
I believe unofficially there was somewhere a little north of 450, which is about average.
And do you think that when you have elections, you should have higher percentage of people participating?
I do everything I can to increase voter participation, not only in our chapter elections, but when I participate through our campaign on political education to get our members out to vote for candidates that run for council, that run for mayor, that run for governor, that run for president. I do everything I can whenever I can to increase voter participation.
Now, the local election, the general local election that was held for all SEIU officers, there's an appeal around that election as well, and there's a challenge in saying that all people were not informed and business agents were told not to let people know that there was an election. Do you have any concerns about what happened in that election?
You know what? I can't comment on that as far as only because I don't know. Some of the things you're telling me, I've never heard. I've never heard anyone say that some reps. So what was the term you used? To suppress votes?
No, not to suppress votes. They were told not to let people know that there was an election, not to say anything about the election.
I can't comment on that because this is the first time I've heard that.
Do you know about that election company that was hired and had software problems and computer problems?
There was a recount in that election. There was a count, and then there was a recount the following week. I believe they ended up going to a hand recount.
And the participation in that election also was, 5,000 people for 54,000 members. Do you have any concerns about the lack of participation in elections when you have 54,000 members and only 4,000 or 5,000 people vote?
I think everyone does. It could be higher, it should be higher.
Why do you think it isn't? I know the unions are trying to get people out in this election, in the national election.
I know I vote, and I tell everyone that I know to vote. It's important that they vote, regardless of who they vote for. And then I put a lot of energy into that, so,
Well, do you have a debate or forums where the candidates can speak up at a forum or videotape all the candidates so they can get their voices out?
I believe that Other than the election material where you provide a statement, other than that, I did see some folks come to the work sites, but not everyone. I seen some candidates, and other than that, whatever I found out about them is what I kind of like knew from the voting material that was put out by the local.
I mean, I'm talking about electronically. I mean, the union, like some unions, say teachers in Richmond, they have an election. They have the candidates speak. They videotape their presentations, and it's on their website, so all the members can see where the candidates stand.
Did our local do that? I don't think
Your chapter?
our City of Oakland chapter. I don't think they did that.
You think that would help make a more democratic election, maybe more participation?
You know, it might. I mean, I think what you do is try to touch. If you're running, you try to touch as many people as you can, and that's. But as far as a different format, sure, I think something like that would get the message out too. But that would get the message out. But yeah, I guess so. You know.
Now, the issue of
So you're talking about kind of like what we see in the news, right? So kind of like for like a venue where someone could go view that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what they did in Richmond, the UTR, United Teachers of Richmond, is all the candidates are running. They speak 5 minutes. This is why I'm running. This is what my issues are. All the candidates, and then they put it on the website so everybody can see.
Yeah, that would be great.
So, what this issue of temporary workers in Oakland? What is the issue in temporary workers? Are there a lot of workers that are being held temporary, even though they worked for the city many years?
As temporary part-time, yes, there are a lot.
And how long has that been going on?
I believe it during the recession, it kind of like really,
Escalated.
it escalated a lot. It got out of hand.
And what do you think should be done about it?
I think that those jobs should be for full-time folks. They should be converted to full-time jobs, so that good jobs for people to take care of their families. I think that's what everybody wants. So
Is that going to be an issue for the city or for the mayor that these jobs be made permanent?
I can't speak to the mayor or what the city's going to do. I could only speak to what I would like to see.
I see. So you're not going to make that demand on the city?
I didn't say that. I already said that I would like to. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see these jobs turned into real jobs where you can support your family and send your kids to college and have a good retirement, good medical for your family.
Does the mayor know about these issues?
I'm sure they do.
Has it been publicized? I mean, have there been any rallies or demonstrations around it?
These things are being talked about all over the nation, every day.
Well, they've had rallies in San Francisco.
They've had rallies all over the nation.
Have there been any rallies in? Have there been?
For 15
Yeah, I know.
Union, along with everything.
Have there been any rallies in Oakland for city employees to make sure they're all permanent?
We've had rallies around our when we were in bargaining, but yes, we have had rallies.
How many workers are we talking about
Which,
who are temporary and should be permanent?
I know the numbers are high. I couldn't give you an exact number.
Hundreds, thousands?
I would think more than hundreds, at least 1,000, I would say.
Okay, the election. What do you think is going to happen in this election?
Bernie. Feel the burn.
You're a supporter of Bernie. What about
I'm a supporter of Bernie because Bernie, if you look at Bernie's stance on the issues, it's like you check all the boxes that a union believes in as far as, good pay for workers, medical, retirement. Bernie believes in all those things.
Well, most of the unions, large unions, including the SEIU, AFSCME, are supporting Hillary Clinton. What happened?
I support Bernie.
No, I'm not asking about
I
you.
was out there. I can't tell you. I don't work
Do you
for
think?
AFSCME.
No, I'm just saying the majority of unions, not just SEIU, are supporting Hillary Clinton, and that's why probably she's in first place because nationally, the unions are supporting.
I think Bernie has more support on the West Coast because the West Coast is more progressive.
So you think he's going to carry California?
I'm not saying that. It's pretty close. I think it's going to be a close race.
And what about SEIU1021? What position are they taking on the election?
I believe they did an endorsement on Hillary.
What about the local?
The international, which includes the local, endorsed Hillary.
The local had no democratic right to say who they wanted?
I didn't say that. I just said that.
I mean, the local could say we don't agree with that. We want to have our own support.
Okay, if that's what you say, I don't.
I mean, no, I'm asking you. I mean, there's some locals like the AFT, for example, not all AFT locals are supporting Hillary Clinton. Some have endorsed Bernie Sanders.
All I know is that we're supporting Hillary as far as the union. I mean, I can't speak to what else you're saying. I don't know.
Do you think that there should be a democratic vote of the membership of unions about who they should be supporting politically?
I think that, sure, of course there should be. Everyone should get a chance to vote for who they want to vote for.
And who the union should support?
That they should, yeah, they should.
Yeah, my name is Tim Glasper. On a recount, May 25th, there was an election here at SEIU Union Hall, 100 Oak Street in Oakland, and the numbers just didn't add up. The total votes for the president position came out to 240, but we was told it's 469 total votes. So we requested a recount, and once the members actually got involved and started contacting Roxanne Sanchez, she actually ordered a recount. So that's what we're doing here tonight.
And what kind of work do you do?
I'm a street sweeper for the city of Oakland. Been there 14 years.
And what are your concerns and issues about what's happening in city workers and your work issues?
Well, it's just a lot of stuff going on within the city, and come to find, there's a lot of stuff going on inside the union also. So one of my goals is with the people that have decided to work with me, is we're trying to clean up the union and the city for a variety of reasons, for a variety of issues throughout the city.
And what concerns do you have about what's happening in the union?
Well, the union's supposed to be for the little guy. We're supposed to be united and stick together, and just coming here, working here inside the union hall, I'm not seeing that, and that bothers me. Throughout all the members throughout the city of Oakland, we pay collectively roughly about $2 million, and we deserve better representation than what we're getting.
And what does that mean? I mean, give some examples of how you feel you're not being represented properly.
Well, personally, my personal feeling is that we should have at least 3 business reps just for the city of Oakland. Right now, we only have 1.
For how many employees?
Roughly, there's about probably around 3,000 employees with TPT.
So you only have 1 representative for 3,000 employees.
1 full-time business rep, yes. And then we have the president, who's current president, who is Al Marshall, who is on full-time release, and they're trying to use him as a business rep, in my opinion, to save money instead of actually having a rep to come do the job that is needed for the members who are paying their dues.
And what's happening to employees in the city of Oakland?
There's a variety of things that's going on that we're trying to fight. We have a bad situation with TPTs.
What are TPTs?
That's temporary part-time people. Some of the TPTs, for example, been here 15, 20 years, and they get no benefits, no retirement.
So the city is exploiting them without making them proper permanent employees?
Yes, in a nutshell, yes, they are. We have one young lady, well, I call her young lady. She sent me an email. She's 71 years of age. She's been with the city for 21 years. She's taken a test to get a full-time job. 8 times, came out number 1 6 times, but she's still part-time. So now she's 71. She needs to continue to work to pay her bills, but she can't retire. So basically, the city is telling her, you have to continue to work until you pass away, and that's totally unfair. We need to get out of this temporary business and actually hire people full time, give them the benefits so people can thrive.
And is the union making that an issue?
Some of us are. Some of us are. We have some business reps in the past who actually brought this to light, and out the blue, they was just transferred, shipped away. So we have some business reps now who are scared to touch it because of that. But as employees, I do not work for the union, I work for the city. So I have no fear of what this union can do. So that's why we're pushing this issue.
Now, this union was merged into 1021 before you had separate locals, East Bay or Oakland, and you had. Do you think this merger, how has that affected your representation and your democratic rights within the union?
Personally, my own personal feelings, I think it weakened it. I believe that 790 was a better union. It was better structure. Once again, I wasn't asked my opinion on the merger. I wasn't given an option to vote for the merger. It was just done.
It came down from the top.
Yeah, it's just one day we're 790, the next day we're 1021. People were shipped out of here. It was no explanation. It's just You want 790 one day, the next day 1021.
And you're in a bigger local now, so having democratic control in a bigger local, is more difficult for the members then.
Yeah, but it's just the process in itself. I mean, for a city like the size of Oakland with 4,000 city workers, and then you only have 400 people that voted. I mean, we have members who just totally given up on the union, and their only contribution to the union is their dues. They don't come to meetings because they're just totally turned off with what's been going on with this union. And the slate that I have asked to run with me, we have dedicated ourselves to change this union around and get it back to the way it should be, functioning properly for the members.
And so why do you think that this election was problematic, and why did you force the president, Roxanne Sanchez, to call a new count tonight?
Well, one, they have what they consider a bylaw template, which we were told it was supposed to go to the union attorney, which never happened. And then there was like 3 or 4 different votes on changing the bylaw template when the bylaw template clearly states what is needed to change the bylaws. So none of that was done. Like I said, I hate to say our slate, but my slate, our slate, we've been pressuring the union to try to get them to do the right thing. And we get a lot of resistance from it. They had the election, which is, in my opinion, it didn't have any validity because it doesn't follow the bylaws.
Who's running the election?
Roxanne Sanchez, she is aware of it. John Stan Mendez is aware of it.
Who is he?
He's the director, East Bay director. Unfortunately, neither one of them are here tonight for the recount, as neither one of them was here on the actual election on May 25th.
So you're trying to get a democratic election from your point of view to make sure that you're properly represented?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We want to make sure that the 469 members who actually took the time to vote, that they are fully represented with their vote. Regardless of whatever the outcome may be, whether I win or lose, we want to make sure that those people who was involved in the process get to speak by their vote. Now,
your business agents are appointed business agents. I mean, they're not really elected by the rank and file. They're not, they don't come from the rank and file. What do you think about the process of your representation? You say people have been moved around, and you basically haven't had any say on where people are moved, or they come or they go. Is this a problem as far as representation?
Yeah, it is a problem because you get familiar with a business rep, and then they get to doing good work, and then they're shipped someplace else, or they shipped out of Oakland. And because we're not actually involved with the union as far as staff side, we really don't get a clear explanation on why they're moved. Then we have nepotism, where they'll be replaced with their friends, come in as business reps, and they're not capable to carry the ball of what's needed to be done in Oakland. I mean, Oakland is unique. It's very cheap.
And it takes a long time to learn what is going on. I mean, doesn't it? If you're going to properly represent people, you have to know how the system operates. I mean, this takes years, doesn't it, to know how a city operates and all the different problems and issues and nuances of a city.
Yeah, and it seemed like once they get acclimated to where they need to be, then there's a change. Like I said, I can recall out of the 14 years I've been here, about 9 or 10 business reps. And you can't be effective if you're constantly changing business reps like that.
Now, the city of Oakland, they have their representatives, management representatives. Do they have the turnover like the city union does?
No.
So they have people who know what they're doing, who are all experienced, and who don't go anyplace. They've got...
Yeah, they be here for the long haul. Yeah, so
they're in a better position to represent the city if they know exactly what's going on. They have the history and everything else.
Yes, they do. They do. And that's put us at a disadvantage. And that's why our slate is trying to get this union up to speed so we can actually challenge the city on certain issues that we come to know that's incorrect.
Hi, I'm Belinda Calvin. I'm a 25-year employee with the City of Oakland, assigned to the Oakland Police Department as a police service technician.
And what does a police service technician do?
In most jurisdictions, they're classified as community services officers. We supplement some of the work we work for in the field. Actually, we're pretty much varied all over the department. So we do a lot of the things that officers can do, but it's much more economical for a civilian employee to do.
And you've been involved in the union. How long have you been involved in Local 1021?
Well, I guess unofficially, I've been involved ever since maybe about 1998 or so, when things started kind of just surfacing, and I had a lot of concerns with just the way that things were happening, but didn't fully understand the process. I went back to school, majored in government, and came back and got on board.
And what were your concerns about how things were functioning?
A lot of, well, the police department's always been somewhat controversial in the way that it does things, and there's been, it's kind of ebbs and tides of racism, a lot of nepotism, cronyism, the the way people are situated, assigned who gets what, and just the hiring process has been pretty much one of the biggest problems for me, I would say.
So, aren't there seniority rules and procedures for civil service that would require proper the right to proper tests and so you don't have this nepotism?
They're supposed to be. I'll leave it at that.
So you got involved in this election and you had some concerns about how the election was functioning. What kind of concerns do you have about what's happening in this election for the city employees of SEIU 1021 in Oakland?
Well, there's a lot in this one in particular, and it's quite troubling for me as an African American woman and with the history of voting in this country, and just some of the things that I saw in such a small election. The first thing that bothered me was the fact that the way that it was announced. If you looked at the past, then the current president's been here for 2 years in his term, and prior to that, they were always, I believe, 3-year terms. So we showed that pattern, and we asked, okay, so why deviate from that particular, cycle? And so we started looking at the bylaws. So we were told that you're not going by the bylaws, the chapter, the local bylaws. You're going by a template. So I said, okay, so let's look at the template. So I looked at the template that they gave us during a meeting that we had, and when I looked at it, for some reason it just didn't sit right with me. So I went online, and when I went online, this so-called same template was there. However, there's all these various revisions at the bottom at the end of the document, but the date on them, there was one that was inconsistent. So if you have revisions and you're tracking them, there shouldn't be a deviation as to what day those revisions occurred. So I asked for a copy of all of the bylaws, so I could see what the changes were in each one of the revisions, and I still have yet to get that, even though I went before the e-board and requested that information. That was one. And thereafter, when we started getting into this actual electoral process, is that it just kind of came out unannounced, and it seems like part of the slate, our opposition, they had prior knowledge. So apparently they had put their whole slate together. So when we found out, it's like, okay, well, then we had to play catch up a little bit. So then I got wind of an email that was out there. And in the email, we've been told for maybe about 3 or 4 months, if not longer, that Dana McPherson wasn't a part of Oakland anymore. But this email was sent out by Dana McPherson. It was sent to Steve Patachi, which is the rep assigned to Oakland, and then it was sent to Felipe, which is a presidential candidate. So I'm sitting here looking and thinking, okay, so at this time when it came out, we had no idea that Felipe was a presidential candidate. So if that's the case, and he had prior knowledge of this thing, it should have been made available to all parties, and not just the select. But then again, there's a lot of controversy because Felipe just won the local elections as the industry chair, so we have some concerns with that too.
And this is also this election is taking place, but also there was another election for all the local officers, which has been challenged, and there's some problems that people are concerned about in the previous election. What is your views about that?
Again, I had a lot of problems with that one. I campaigned for Karen Jabbar's slate. We went to the e-board on a number of occasions, so I know that Roxanne wasn't really thrilled with us, and I think that was one of the things that kind of forced our election over here in Oakland. But
so your election took place earlier than you expected it to take place.
Oh, most definitely.
What happened?
Well, I don't. Like I said, the previous presidents had served a 3-year term, some probably even longer than that. And so all of a sudden, there was this rush that we had to have this election, have to have this election. So I started asking, okay, so why, And we started looking at the dates and doing comparisons as to how long the actual ones had been, what was the life of their presidency and things of that nature. And so the more we kind of challenged it, the more, other things came out. We inquired about, finishing up the bylaws. We tried to get our own personal bylaws for the Oakland chapter, and they were supposed to run simultaneously. And no matter what we tried to do, there was always this deviation from whatever we agreed to at the table to you come back and nobody remembered this or nobody remembered that or that's not how I recall. So it was kind of like a forced situation on us.
So in other words, you feel that because you were in opposition to Roxanne, all of a sudden you have a new election in your chapter. They're trying to change the leadership of the chapter. Is that your concern?
Oh, absolutely. Myself, Al, and Tim, we appeared before the e-board at least 3 to 4 times last year, simply because of the lack of representation here. Like I said, for me, it's extremely heartfelt because I work for the police department. We've been under a federal consent decree since 2003. When we started really getting beat up by the federal courts, I made it knowledgeable to this union that we weren't getting the representation that I felt that we were entitled to. And when they really started imposing on us, that I was coming here. And that's when I took an active role and came down and became an extremely active member to represent the interests of the people in the police department.
Because you felt things were coming down on your members in the Oakland Police Department. You had to have a strong union backing you up.
Oh, absolutely. And it's been an absolute nightmare. We finally got the rep that was assigned at the time, I think in 2011 or so, we got the rep that was assigned at the time to go, her and the director, to go to the federal court and accompany us with us. And when they got there, then the first thing they said was, oh my God, we should have been here the whole time. So they realized the significance of it, but you had the city leaders that were surprised by their appearance there and asked, what are you doing here? And she said, we got members here. Well, that was when the courts actually started getting to the point where they were realizing this thing was dragging out further longer than it should have. And now here we are about 13 years in, and just to show you how bad it is for us. One case in the media right now that's huge was the police officer sex scandal when they tried to throw our member under the bus.
And how did they try to throw your member under a bus?
That she actually got an internal affair complaint indicating that she was the subject of the investigation because she knew or she didn't report that a minor was having sex with the police officers.
And was that retaliation, or what was going on?
I wouldn't say that it was retaliation. I think it was a cover-up to protect their own.
So they were going to scapegoat a member of your union to cover up their own deeds.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what I wrote in the 2-page letter that I sent to the city.
And what did the city do about it?
The city followed my recommendation, and instead of her being interviewed as a suspect, or I should say a subject in the investigation, she was identified and treated as a witness as she should have been the whole entire time.
So you acted basically as a union steward to represent your members and to make sure that they weren't retaliated against, or they weren't punished, or they weren't scapegoated. And what kind of support did you get from the local union?
That member in particular right now is still in distress. She's having to deal with all this stuff by herself, and she has not received a call from not one person in this union. I have emails where I sent it to them. I've talked to them. I've begged. I've pleaded. It's been a nightmare. Right now they've been hanging it over my head. I have 8 cases that I've been trying to push to arbitration where we've had members that were. I have 8 cases in particular that are extremely near and dear to me. One of them was, a couple of them actually involve terminations, and what happened to these members was absolutely egregious. It was egregious.
What happened to them?
Well, in one case, we have one individual. He was terminated for whistleblowing activity. He was assigned to the finance department, and he started, kind of raising issue over some of the concerns that were going on over there, and so they actually transferred him. He requested not to be sent to a certain area. They did it anyhow in a retaliatory fashion. They knew why. There was history there, why he didn't want to go. They sent him anyhow. And to make a long story short, they actually put a 5150 hole on him, and they pushed him over the edge. I'll just put it that way, to protect his interests.
So, it sounds like if you have conscientious city employees trying to do their job and reporting malfeasance or financial problems or other issues, they get retaliated against. And the union is really not out there saying we're going to support the members. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Absolutely. I've had to literally fight to get this stuff done. Fortunately, I love to write. I think working for the police department gave me the passion to
Incident reports.
Yeah, I don't know whether I write more for the police department or for the union, but it was funny because when I first started doing this and I asked the union attorney, why don't we ever take anything to arbitration? She said, well, because you don't have any physical evidence, you don't write. And so we were in arbitration one day and she said, she was sitting there and I had just a box of stuff. And so I said, hey, you remember when we had our first conversation and you told me that you don't go to arbitration because I don't write anything? I said, I heard what you said. And she said, yeah. She said, that sounds like something I'd say. So I probably literally literally thousands and thousands and thousands of pages that I've written and documented and collected evidence and things of that nature to help support these individuals that have been harmed by the city and the department.
And I mean, you're talking about defending human rights, worker rights, and that's for the betterment of not just the workers, but the public, isn't it?
Absolutely. One of the things in the consent decree that was imposed on this, or I shouldn't say imposed on the city of Oakland because they agreed to it. So that was agreed by the city and the federal courts was the tampering with evidence or fabricating of evidence. And in my case, because I started protecting the members, that was one of the things I got hit with. They actually manufactured evidence to go after me, and I've proven it. I did the Microsoft properties, they have it, and they refused to charge the individual that did it.
So, in other words, somebody was illegally manipulating the evidence, fabricating things, and the city is refusing to take action against that person.
Oh, absolutely. And I've passed it up. I've given it to the current chief of police. I keep on passing it, and I'm going to keep on passing it until they finally realize the seriousness in what happened. It started out with something so simple as a letter of discussion, and it would seem like not a real big deal, but one, it had to do with union activity, and it was totally fabricated, and it indicated I changed my status from an employee to a steward without permission, which wasn't true. We were going to Skelly. It was over one of those 8 cases that I told you about. It was extremely publicized, and it was their way of trying to suppress me from moving forward with doing things. I don't believe that they thought that it would blow out of proportion the way it did. It was supposed to, I guess, be a scare tactic for me. It ended up we prevailed.
It sounds like you really need a strong union under these circumstances that's going to really back the employees up, because you're dealing with a management that is covering up serious problems as far as manipulation and mismanagement.
Yeah, absolutely, and it violates the consent decree. Publicly, the public concern is that if you're doing it here, you can imagine what's going on in some of these police reports and things of that nature. So you see, there's a compelling public interest. If you do it to me, what will you do it to somebody that doesn't have the savvy, to go in here and uncover some of what you're doing? That's one. Number two, I've brought it to the union. I had to aggressively fight. Everything I take to arbitration, whatever, I usually put my whole entire case together. I don't get any support. I use my own resources, my own time for the most part. And believe it or not, the city's actually paid for an outside investigator to come and look into the claims, whereas I didn't get anything from from the union.
This is a big union. I mean, SEIU1021, it's got 54,000 members. It has collecting millions of dollars. Why aren't they giving you the support you need?
It's a good question. I could say it's personal, and just isolated to the city of Oakland, but I'm a researcher, so I actually was looking at some of the other unions to see if in fact they were impacted the way that we were, or their feelings and sentiment about SCUI was consistent. And one that I saw that was extremely problematic was SEIU1021, and that's where I learned that they actually have a process, not only because I consider it going a fee payer as opposed to continuing to give my money to the union. And then that's when I learned of the non-germane objector, So. Okay, so we had one rep, Angela Ciande. She tried to file a grievance on behalf of the TPTs, and for whatever reason, she was moved out of the city of Oakland. Then we had Millie. She was another rep that tried to file a grievance for the TPTs, and she was told, from my understanding, that it wouldn't fly through arbitration, and so they squashed that one. And then Terry Meadows tried to file a grievance for the TPTs, and he was told he couldn't. So we went all the way through negotiations, and during the heart of negotiations, we had Deborah Edgerly, former city administrator of Oakland. And so she asked the human resource person, isn't it true that we hired these people for the sole purposes of trying to get away from paying their benefits? And he said yes. And I said right then and there, we need to stop negotiating. This needs to go to court. And I've done the history and I've done the research, and it went all the way back 2008 that it really just took off. But they were admonished even by the city to deal with it. Local 21 has been aggressively dealing with theirs. And in this case, what you had was SEIU1021 that turned over and just let these people continue to be abused, even during the heart of negotiations. So I filed the grievance myself. On top of that, they moved them around after the fact, and they violated the ACA Act, the Obamacare, where they were at least working 30 hours and they would have been given benefits. So they reduced them even further and harmed them. And so when I filed the grievance on that, the city rejected the city rejected the grievance. So I wrote it and I sent it back to the city administrator and said, okay, but you got an Obamacare issue here that you're in violation of, and I believe it's $3,000 per person that the fee for being in violation. The city has picked it up, and they've shown an interest. SEIU wants it to go away. Why? When the city has more of an interest in correcting what's happening to the members than the union, that's a problem. And I can get a lot more traction, a lot more support out of the city administration in the city of Oakland today than I can for the union that these people are paying dues for. That's a problem for me, and it should be for everybody in this country, especially those that went out and fought 15 in a union.
I'm Brandon Dawkins. I am the current chief shop steward of the San Francisco Public Health Chapter.
And what's going on here tonight?
So my understanding is that there has been a vote count, and they went through one vote count, and actually they went through two vote counts, and the first vote count didn't match the numbers of the second vote count. So the reason why I'm here, because the situation that how it was explained to me is similar to the local wide election we went through a couple of months ago, where the numbers didn't add up. Where we had about 57,000 members in the entire local 1021, which stretched all across Northern California, and we only had 3,500 members vote. What happened to all the votes? How are voices being heard? Why isn't everybody get to talk about, why isn't everybody have, an ample chance to vote? It's the same thing that's going on here in this local election, so that's why I'm here.
And, I mean, the democracy, and the unions say they want democracy in the United States. The question is, why don't we have democracy in our unions?
I really believe that, that the unions, not all unions, but some unions are out for special interest. They're not there for the members, the dues paying members. So whoever's on this executive board, they're out for themselves. They're, doing stuff for, these special interests, whatever it is. They're backing politicians without consulting the dues paying members of the local.
You're talking about who they support?
Who they support.
How is that in SEIU?
In SEIU, so basically what SEIU is doing is that they're force feeding these politicians down our throats and not consulting the members. Nobody asked us members about supporting Hillary Clinton. Nobody. Most of the members that I've talked to around the local, most unions support Bernie Sanders, not Hillary Clinton.
So why are they doing this? If the members want Bernie Sanders, why wouldn't they support Bernie Sanders? And why don't they have a process, a democratic process, where the members can decide?
It's supposed to be a democratic process where the members are supposed to decide, but it's not democratic. It's not democratic at all. Whether it's, I don't know what the issue is. I can speculate all I want, but, I don't know what the issue is, but they sure didn't consult the members.
And you feel that the area-wide local 1021 election was not fair, was improper?
It was very improper. 57,000 members in the local, 3,400 members, 3,500 members voted. The numbers don't even add up. And that's what's going on in this election tonight. The numbers don't add up. Where are the ballots? Are there some missing? Where are they hidden?
And what is going to be done about this? I mean, there are members who are becoming unhappy about it. What do you think should be done about it?
I think, first of all, the members need to know the truth. Right now, there's a lot of stuff that's going on in SEIU Local 1021 that our members do not know about. Our members don't even know half of the time when to vote, or even when an election happens. Just like with the local wide election, we had a lot of members that did not know that there was an election. And these are dues paying members. They're getting money taken out their check every 2 weeks, paying these dues, and they don't even have a chance to vote.
Well, this was brought up to Mary Kay Henry at the convention. What was her decision?
I don't even know her decision yet. At this point, we're at a point in the process where the international board has to decide.
I see. You think that the issue of representation, I mean, democratic election has to do with how members are being represented?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Our members are not being represented. SEIU gets a lot of money out of our members, okay? And instead of them hiring more reps to come and help us, the stewards out on the fields, and, representing our members, they're bringing in all these managers, okay? They're getting paid top dollar. You have a president, you have an executive director, all these other little positions that they're paying for. You're bringing in consultants who used to be elected officials of the local.
Who would that be?
Larry Bradshaw. He's he's been hired as a consultant. Okay, and he was the vice president of San Francisco. But once his term was up, they brought him back on as a consultant. Instead of bringing him back on as a consultant, they could use that money to bring in some more reps, because we're very short on reps in San Francisco, to the point we have reps that are taking, on 2,000-3,000 members by themselves.
And they're hiring consultants.
And
Larry Bradshaw said that the election was botched. He thought the election was botched. Why hasn't he said publicly there should be another election?
Come on now. Do you really want to ask that? Look, this is the same thing that happened in 2013. I brought that to y'all attention before. It's in the documentation. It is written that the election was botched back in 2013. It was the same thing that happened in 2016, which is the same thing that's happening in this election for the chapter of Oakland.
So another issue that is happening in the Bay Area is the issue of hanging nooses being put up on job sites. At San Francisco Airport, SFO, during the construction, a hanging noose was put up. Also at the Southeast Sewage Plant in San Francisco, hanging noose was put up. The worker who complained about it was retaliated against. Is there an issue of racism on the job and hanging nooses in Oakland?
There's an issue of racism in the city of Oakland without there being a hangman's noose. But yes, there were hangman's noose discovered on several different occasions, and to this very day we don't understand how it got there, but there was an investigator brought in from San Francisco who said that he didn't support any findings of the hangman's noose because of, I guess, of the size of the noose.
And I mean, what if it had been a swastika? You think it would have been a different reaction?
Well, one thing we told the investigator, it doesn't matter if the hangman noose is this big or this big, it's still a hangman's noose.
And what has been the effect of these kind of incidents for the employees in Oakland?
A lot of employees were very upset about this situation, and we live with it every day, so we just try to go in and provide the services that we get paid for by the fine citizens of Oakland.
And what do you think the labor movement and the union should do about it? Because it seems like they're not isolated. They're going on. I mean, there has been reports there's an epidemic of hanging nooses in this country.
I think they really need to look into it and find out what's the cause of it, and then come up with a remedy that people shouldn't have to deal with it moving forward.
What did the city do and the unions do to let the employees know that it's unacceptable?
They just sent out a memo saying that it was unacceptable.
No education campaign, no...
There was I want to say like a shrink brought in to consult any members who felt like they needed to have a conversation with somebody about it.
Did the union have any public meetings about it?
There was no public meetings brought on by this union.
Should there have been?
Yes, there should have been, and we lobbied for them, but they chose not to get out in front of that one.
Why would that be? I mean, you would think that you would want to make it a public issue to educate people that it's something that is not tolerated.
We're simply not on the same page. Simply not on the same page.